Hey y'all, we're going to go ahead and get started because it's right at 11. We only have a short time. I do want to let everyone know, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for those of you who stayed from the previous session. A little bit of a sharing out, Q&A at the end. It is being filmed and live streamed. That'll be available up on the website later on. And for the Q&A, Megan will be running around with the microphone. So again, thanks for being here. As folks trickle in, there's still coffee, there's still donuts. Please don't make me take those home. And with that, I will turn it over to Nikki.
Thanks so much. So welcome to the forum. We are happy to do this session with you. It goes from 11 to 12, and you have response cards at your places. And so if you think of something along the way, a question you want to ask, a comment you want to make, or whatever, you're certainly welcome to jot that down. We'll collect the response cards at the end of the session. So you can just hang on to it while we're in session. So what we would like to do today is to go through the highlights of the project. So when I say we, I'm Nikki Harrington, and my colleagues over here, Cindy Griffith, Donna Boatwright, and Casey Green. And the four of us are with the Collaborative Brain Trust. You see our names there on the screen. The Collaborative Brain Trust is working with the college on the Educational Master Plan project, helping them with facilitation and technical, doing meetings and things like that. So this forum is part of that project, and so we're very happy to be here. The overview for the forum are these things that you see on the screen. We're going to do an overview of how the project is shaped, the 4 stages, and the phases that we're going through. And then we'll do some highlights of trends and planning assumptions that have been gathered. Then some summaries of the listening and vision sessions that have been conducted and the themes that have come out of that. And then identifying some challenges and opportunities for Cuesta College for this plan. It's a 4-year plan, so you'll see the years there. And then we'll go to next steps, and that will bring us to Q&A. So we'll do questions and answers at the end of the session. We have about 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. So jot something down. If something comes up in your mind, jot it down so you don't forget it, and we'll do those at the end of the session. So with that, let me start with just an overview of the project. The project was designed in the first phase of the project when there was a retreat held on November 7th before the holidays. And we had leadership from the various employee groups come together to look at how are we looking at the design for this next educational master plan. The discussion was very lively. People had a lot of comments and thoughts and shared a lot of great ideas. We worked in tables. We worked through a number of exercises with that group to actually design the project. One of the things that came out of that was the formation of the EMP task force, which has representatives from all the employee groups and students on it. A decision to go with a 4-year plan for this cycle. Some ideas about stakeholder engagement and who all should be involved, and everybody felt everybody should be involved. This is an important project for the college. And then 2 campus forums, today being the first one. The second one is going to be on April 30th at 3 o'clock. Megan, is that right? Okay, at 3 o'clock. And then making sure that we have some catchball back and forth, some review and feedback of ideas and thoughts that people have. So you'll see here on the screen the 4 phases of the project. This is the way that we laid it out with that design and planning team. Phase 1 was that session I mentioned, November 7th, to lay out the design and plan the timeline and everything for the project to be completed. So we moved into the discovery phase right after that session, and we started in December collecting data, looking at information about the SLO area and about the region in general and workforce needs and all of that. You'll see on that phase 2, there's a box in the middle, and it shows that the data that we look at when we do a project like this with a college is to look at both internal and external data, and to look at both quantitative, all the numbers, and qualitative, all the thoughts, views, perspectives of people. So you'll see that puts us into 4 quadrants: internal, quantitative, internal, qualitative, external quantitative and external qualitative. Okay, that's my hardest slide. And so that discovery phase then has gone all the way up until last month. We finished collecting all the data and doing all the sessions during those months of December, January, February. And so we are now in phase 3, compiling all of the information and looking at the planning assumptions for this plan. So what we do with the quantitative data is we look at trends and planning assumptions, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. And then with all of the qualitative data, people's viewpoints, perspectives, thoughts, ideas, we put those all together into themes. And so we'll show you that in a few minutes as well. And that happens during this month. That's what we're actively doing this month. We'll have an EMP document, a draft document available in a couple of weeks. We're populating it now as we go. So early April, you'll have a complete document except for the goals and objectives. And that is phase 4. Phase 4, the EMP task force and the executive team for the college come together in a joint meeting. We'll be in this room. We'll have a lot of really robust activities for an 8-hour session, which is split into 2 days. So the 29th and 30th, they meet for 4 hours each day to work on developing the set of goals and objectives in a draft form for the college. So the first one we want to kick off is the data portfolio, the trends and planning assumptions, and I'm going to turn it over to Casey. And if you have a question or something along the way or a comment you want to make, we also have 2 microphones. We'll come to you with a microphone so you can ask the question. But otherwise, we'll kind of move through the next about 35 minutes or so, 40 minutes for these pieces of presentation, and then we'll have the Q&A at the end for 15 minutes. So Casey.
Thank you. And again, we'll be using the microphones because this is being recorded, so we want to make sure that your voices are recorded too. So my role was really to look at the quantitative data. The main sources of quantitative data are the U.S. Census, the Chancellor's Office, their COMIS data, and also your internal data. And there's a lot of that available on your institutional research website through the data visualizations there. That said, my first few slides are not fully quantitative, but they're still important. And what I'm covering today is really highlights. There's a whole lot more data and information that is included in prior presentations that I made to the task force, the Educational Master Planning Task Force, and those documents are on the website and available to you. So if these highlights get you excited, be sure to check out the Educational Master Planning website and you can see a lot more information. So first, looking at the very, very large picture, EDUCAUSE does a very good job of collecting qualitative and quantitative data to come up with annual national trends in higher education. And again, I'm just highlighting a few here that seem the most relevant for your work. The first one, we heard at Cuesta that students want it all right now in terms of their courses. We spoke with some students who want more face-to-face. We spoke with some students who want more fully online. We spoke with some students who want more hybrid. So your challenge now is finding the right balance depending on the program and student needs for that. But that's a national trend. That's not just Cuesta. That's a point I'm making here. Also, the CTE programming, it's not just Cuesta that is realizing that you need more CTE programming. That's happening nationally, and it's happening at the state level too. And politics is coming into higher ed in ways that it hasn't before, and that's a trend that we're living with. I know I was thinking, oh, the Department of Education nationally might be dismantled. Well, that's K-12. Actually, it's not. It will impact us too because of the National Center for Educational Statistics. That is the go-to place for national statistics on post-secondary institutions. Also, AI, artificial intelligence, is here to stay. That impacts our work, no matter our role at the college. It impacts student learning, and it impacts pedagogy as well. Moving from the national to specifically the state context, we know at California community colleges that we are somewhat ruled by our state legislature, right? They pass they pass laws, or and we need to respond to those. Certainly, anybody who's ever worked at the Chancellor's office understands that quite well, and that's going to continue to happen. And there's been an emphasis on trying to reduce time to degree and the cost for students. Also, an emphasis on expanding CTE. I already mentioned that. There's a new statewide plan that starts from K-12 through community colleges to really try to tighten up the connections better to prepare students for CTE careers, to prepare them for workforce demand. And also the Vision 2030 goals, which are closely tied with the student-centered funding formula, that is still in full force, and something that Cuesta needs to really be aware of as it affects your funding. The outcomes of the Vision 2030 goals, which the Chancellor's office will now start recording on your behalf, that will affect your funding. So it's important to be aware of that trend. Regionally, you all are aware that San Luis Obispo County is rather isolated. That really impacts your ability for what you can do, and it's something to be aware of for your students as well as your educational programs and everything. Also, your K-12 population is not really projected to grow, but that is actually good news because statewide it's projected to decline, right? So you're in a bit of a bubble in this county where they're actually long-term, like 10 to 20 years, they're expecting there to be actually a little bit of growth with more kids and college-aged people. But right now it's flat, but that's good news compared to the state. Also, this was mentioned before, well, this morning, not all of you were here, but even though this is a fairly above average educated county, you especially have a high degree of bachelor's plus, you also have almost half of your population has less than an associate degree. Almost half your population has less than an associate degree. That is a broad pool of potential students. And although income and poverty rates in San Luis Obispo County are similar to the state, your cost of housing is significantly higher, which impacts affordability in this area, as you all know quite well, but obviously it impacts your students even more. Looking at labor market trends, we do this kind of planning with colleges in various areas, mostly in the state of California, but we learn a lot by seeing trends in different areas. You all have a really strong county-wide economic development effort here, and we found that lots of folks at the college were aware of this. So it's a really great opportunity for you all to work with your county and with that REACH project to be able to align new programs to workforce demand in high-paying jobs. So that's a fabulous opportunity. And there, we did I crunched the numbers to show where the gaps are in this area between degrees and certificates that Cuesta is supplying and what the workforce demand is. So we have a long list of areas for the college to consider for CTE programming. They might not all make sense for you, even if there is a demand. But again, that full list will be in the appendix of the final report, and it'll be on the website, the Educational Master Planning website. Also, and this is a national trend, but it fits under labor market, that post-pandemic, we still have about 1 in 20 people working or working partly remotely. And that might include some of you, right? But 16% work fully remote, and that trend is more pronounced for young workers. In the age group of 24 to 35, 39% work fully remotely. So that's something to keep in mind, thinking about programming for your students and also helping them maybe prepare to be an online worker, right, if they're not yet. So that's something to consider. In the district context, you've had demographic shifts, as has the state. This county used to be predominantly white. That's not the case anymore, and you, of course, see that reflected in your students. We see it at community colleges before universities see it, right? So that is We know that, and that's following state trends. Also a trend that you have low efficiency, which is a benchmark used statewide, FTES divided by FTEF. The kind of the industry standard for community colleges is 16. That's what you want that magic number to be for economic viability and strength. And at Cuesta, it's around 11 and has been for some time. So it's a fair amount lower, so that's an important trend to note and maybe try to address. Also, your North and South County campus sites currently have limited face-to-face options, and that seems to be mostly post-pandemic. And that's an issue, especially because the bus system doesn't seem to work very efficiently to bring students to this campus. So there's the commute issue and timing. And again, we know that you're working on building those back up, and it's going to be a matter of finding the right balance, the right mix of face-to-face, online, and hybrid. Okay, we're going to shift next to student outcomes. And for this, I use the Chancellor's Office Data Vista, and that's one way the Chancellor's Office is tracking outcomes that impact the student-centered funding formula. But one thing I really like about that data is it allows us to look at students based on their journey, right? So we're going to first look at degree transfer students because that's the largest percentage of your student population. And we would expect outcomes for degree transfer to be things like, do you earn a degree or do you transfer? We wouldn't expect those outcomes from adult education students, right? So I think it's a really nice way to be able to focus in on students by their journey. So for your degree transfer students who have that as a goal, a really great thing you have going is that you have a higher level of students completing transfer level math and English in their first year. And that, you get extra money for that with the student-centered funding formula, right? So that's a great thing. More importantly, that's been shown to promote efficient transfer and earning a degree, right? That's a predictor of student success, and you all are doing a better than statewide average job on that here. A statistic that's not quite as positive is you have lower persistence rates, so that's something to think about. And also slightly lower UC and CSU admission and yield rates. Yield is the percentage who actually attend, who apply. Looking at your short-term CTE students, so not seeking a degree, maybe a certificate, but they're here usually because they want a better job, right? Or they want to get promoted at their current job. Right now, we're showing lower rates of wages and lower rates of earning the living wage for Cuesta College students. And again, that probably could be addressed through expanding your CTE programming to high-wage, high-demand jobs in response to the labor market data. The last group is adult education ESL students, and that's a relatively small program here. It's a smaller slice of the pie than at most community colleges, your percentage who are adult ed ESL. We know it was larger in the past, but the good news is for that small population, the outcomes are fairly high. They're doing better than average, than the statewide average and the regional average. And again, remembering that nearly half of San Luis Obispo County residents have less than an associate degree. A good number of them might fall into this adult ed ESL population and be a real opportunity for the college. And again, there's going to be a lot more data on the website. There is a lot more data on the website that you can dig into, but are there any questions on these slides so far? Okay, I'll turn it over to my colleagues for the next section.
So it's my pleasure to present to you listening session information. We met with a great number of employee groups, as you can see on the slide. We actually, in total, met with internal and external stakeholders in more than 30 different sessions, over 160 participants. So the qualitative information coming in from your listening sessions is rich, to be combined with the quantitative information that Casey just presented to you. These are the emergent themes, and I do want to say that to set the stage for discussing these statements and themes, that these are indeed perceptions of those participants that visited with us. We have not vetted them. There may be projects that are going on that address each one of these. So realize that, again, this is not anything that is coming from CBT as a recommendation. These are all participant information and those that emerge with the greatest frequency. I'm going to go through these individually, but as you can see, there are 7 different emergent themes. Then I also want to talk briefly about the areas of study and what emerged from those in the way of insights. The first one is student-centered access, success, and equity. Because of our limited time together today, know that I'm going to hit some highlights here, but you'll be able to read all of them and then also go back, as Casey said, and review these, the slide deck. One of the things that was most important was streamlining the processes for your students to remove the barriers, making sure that you had a schedule that was student-centered, that you had a nice balance of classes for them, that you're answering their needs with face-to-face, online, and also hybrid offerings, making sure also that evening courses are included in that. Being sure that you strengthen the engagement and your student retention. That's something that we heard is very important. And also making sure your students are aware of all of the different support services that are available to them. As a part of that, some expansion on your counseling services, making sure that they had adequate coverage during the peak times as well. And dual enrollment, of course, always important, and making sure that there's good coordination and opportunities specifically for CTE. Casey mentioned this just a slide or two ago about the adult ed with ESL and GED. We heard that there was a need to increase offerings out at South County Center for that. And again, more conversation about reducing barriers for students, whether that be financial barriers, whether that be barriers in them not being able to get credit for prior learning. Also, making sure that they had opportunities for hands-on learning, whether that's project-based or to develop internships, apprenticeships for them as well. And then one of the last statements on here is a continuation of your consideration of that 16-week semester that's being looked at for fall of 2026. In addition to that, to continue an expansion of your DEI initiatives and your equity-driven policies, to make sure your students feel that belongingness here on each and every campus. Also to make sure that you have a vibrant campus environment for them. We heard that as being something that was really important. Increasing their access to not just knowledge of the support services, but increasing access to those services such as mental health services, tutoring, et cetera. With a thought about strategic enrollment, this didn't come as a theme by itself, but we did want to point this out. So strategic enrollment and also your sustainable growth, some really important points that were brought out in that is the actual acknowledgement that with the rise in your distance ed offerings, that does have an impact here on your on-campus enrollment. But again, making sure that you have a well-balanced schedule of those offerings is critically important. Since you do have, as Casey mentioned, a flattening somewhat of your K through 12 enrollment, it's important that there is focus on your returning students, those non-traditional students. Also, in thinking about strategic enrollment, making sure that you have a good, well-developed and comprehensive plan. And as a part of that, also taking a look at it with some out-of-the-box type thoughts and expansion there. And then with the North and the South County campuses, there's been concern about their low enrollment. So we heard that there was a need to develop a very comprehensive plan for each one of those locations to make sure that the institutional goals and the students are being, and their goals are being met. The next is educational and workforce pathways. We heard a lot about the need to do a reset on guided pathways, so all 4 pillars have been implemented. Cuesta uses areas of study for each one of their pathways, and you have, of course, 8 of those. But to be sure that there's good understanding about those areas of study, also that there is a lot of collaboration and discussion, some interdisciplinary opportunities there. making sure that you have a robust CTE program offering, as well as being sure that the advisory committees that are associated with those are ones that are not stale, if you will, but ones that are really maintaining a membership of active industry and business partners. Also, an expansion of your 2+2. You just developed that with Cal Poly, one of those, but there's opportunities to do further development there. And then making absolute certainty on these pathways that you have a way for your students to move from a non-credit type offering in an on-ramp, moving on into a credit program through certificates and then degrees. And most of all, making sure that you stay relevant with each one of those programs and that you're meeting the needs of those business and industry partners. The next theme was institutional agility, resilience, and operational efficiency. We heard that there was a need to standardize processes to make sure that there was not a reliance on an informal knowledge, but that it was actually documented. Also, we heard the need to enhance program review to make sure that there's good decision-making there, to also acknowledge if a program needs additional assistance through resources, if there is a new program that's needed. And then we heard a lot of discussion about leveraging technology solutions to assist you with course scheduling, making sure that your students are having the opportunity to complete their programs in a very timely manner. And then also taking a look at your current academic division structures to make sure that there's coherence in those through the pathways. The next theme was campus development and resource optimization. We heard quite a bit about the expansion into the South County and the location. You have a plan for that. Again, we heard about the vibrant campus culture that's needed. As a part of that, we heard quite a bit from students as well as staff about the opportunity to have more food options that are more affordable. Then we also heard about the need to really enhance the sustainability and the renewable energy initiatives, to enhance the budgeting as well as the resource allocation transparency, updating on some of the purchasing processes to make sure those are as efficient as possible. And then I'm also always taking a look at a very strategic plan for the long-term funding sustainability for Cuesta. The next theme was institutional culture, communication, and professional growth. There was discussion amongst many in the groups about fostering a very service-oriented campus climate, to expand the Caring Campus initiative to all employee groups and not just as it has been with staff maintaining that initiative. Also, there was discussion about updating was needed of job descriptions and role clarity. Improving campus communication is something that we heard a lot about, that there was a feeling that there are silos and there are ways beyond committee work to be able to have really rich conversations in moving Cuesta forward. There also was a need to strengthen the promotion, the marketing of your CTE programs, and we also heard about the development of an implementation plan once this educational master plan is complete to make sure that you're able to meet your goals and objectives. For community engagement and strategic partnerships, this is yet another theme, and there was the need to strengthen your outreach and your responsiveness to your community, making sure that you're meeting their workforce needs, making sure that you've got good alignment from the CTE programs, again, that meet your regional need, removing any barriers that are unintentionally created to your workforce-focused initiatives, making sure that you continue to expand partnerships with your business and industry. So again, your students have opportunities for internships and more hands-on learning. Project-based learning as well is something that we heard a lot about. And then we also heard that there was a need to increase your engagement with your governmental agencies, your economic development groups, so they could assist and you would have knowledge of funding as well as support from them. In addition to that, we also heard about the need to strengthen your high school partnerships, to promote Cuesta as their first choice once they graduate. Again, we wanted to point out that we heard from many, many groups, including our areas of study, about the need to expand your 2+2 partnerships. You just developed one with Cal Poly, but there are many opportunities to continue that growth. And then also as a part of that, to be sure that there's good alignment with Cal Poly's industry initiatives. One of the ones we heard about, ag science in particular, and allied health, business was another one. From each of your 8 areas of study, we met with faculty and some staff in these groups, and there were key insights that came out of that you will find that are somewhat very reminiscent of what we just talked about and learned from those listening sessions. The first one was career readiness and workforce alignment. Again, making sure we heard from those groups that there were really clear pathways to the career, that the preparation for those students was to meet the employer's needs, not the program's needs, but the employer's needs, to make sure that they had that hands-on learning opportunity, and then again, to continue that expansion into business and industry partnerships. Another insight was the program growth. There was some concern about the low enrollment or sustaining programs. We also heard about the need to strategically update all of your curriculum. And we heard some things about new program development, that as new programs came along, that sometimes there was a concern that the funding for your core programs, the ones already in place, may not be as well supported. So really taking a look at how you develop new programs and making sure that they are supported for your students and faculty. Equity and pathways was another. You have a really healthy and robust dual enrollment. However, there are areas for expansion. Specifically, we heard about the desire to expand out into CTE and make sure that those pathways are in alignment with the high school. And once again, we heard about non-credit to credit transitions that are needed so students can have on-ramps and off-ramps. Then one of the last 2 areas, scheduling, accessibility, and student support, was another area of insight. Again, flexible scheduling of courses that is student-centered, making sure that they are having their needs met and again can complete their programs in a very timely manner. Making sure that there's adequate full-time faculty. Some of the CTE programs we understood may not have full-time faculty associated with that, so making sure that they are resourced. And also we heard some concerns about the ability to track graduates and their outcomes, so that was another area. Under facilities and resources, some funding challenges were of a concern to those groups. Some facility limitations were also concerns. Accreditation complexities, especially from your CTE programs that have programmatic accreditation as well as your institutional accreditation. And also having to do with industry and technology, want to mention the need for AI integration, because we know it is coming at us fast and furious and changing every day. We also heard about the need to make decisions for programs that were data-driven, not just quantitative, but quantitative and qualitative considerations before a reactive decision was made. So it's very thoughtful and comprehensive. And then, again, always making sure that we are being responsible to business and industry and their needs. That's something that we heard repetitively in these areas of study. And with that, I will turn this over to my colleague, Donna.
So, challenges and opportunities. So we've been looking at this huge bunch of information, and we're trying to whittle it down so it is good, usable information as a tool to develop the goals for this college. So I'm going to be giving you a bunch of slides about the challenges and then the opportunities that come from them. I'm going to not spend too much time because we want to hear from you, but it's really important that there is understanding of what the challenges are for you to come to a good plan. And we've tried to whittle them down into manageable categories, and so we have 20 challenges and 20 opportunities. And obviously, the first is the external environment and economic challenges. There's always stuff that's going on outside of the college that you have no control over, but often places heavy demands on you to either do something different or to be responsive. So that's very, very important, the shifting economic and political landscape. Technological advances, some of them are wonderful, they cost money, that's a whole nother burden on the college. Financial insecurity comes from that and other places as well. And then we are in a changing funding life from the state, so the SCIF always puts new burdens of what you have to do at the college. And then, as has been mentioned, there's a declining or flat, actually, enrollment from K-12. So in terms of growth is important, both in terms of wanting to be a vibrant college, but it's also important because it is a source of some of your finances. So that is a challenge. And as I started to mention, you have all kinds of demands placed upon you that you have to implement, and that always requires lots of thinking, lots of talking, lots of collaboration in order to achieve what your goals. You do have low persistence and completion rates, and those matter for the student's success, but they also matter for funding. And you need to think about strategic enrollment growth. Again, because you have a flat K-12, you have to think about where to get your students. CTE program alignment is really important, aligning with the high schools, thinking about what's going on in the community in terms of business and industry so that your CTE programs are relevant. You need to, you have lower than the statewide average in terms of your financial aid participation, and that's a funding source. So that's things like the promise and the statewide promise, those matter, and you're on the low side here. There needs to be more dual enrollment management. It's a very successful program, but it is, you don't want it to get out of control. You need to know how it's working and have good operation with that. And you need to have a balance and mix of delivery. That's a big challenge. Efficiency and productivity, understanding your students, being able to expand your outreach and services for non-traditional students. All of those are challenges. They require people to put energy in, workload. The issue of equity and access at the two campuses is really something that's coming up now that we're out of, or mostly out of the COVID stage, if you will. And then something we've heard lots and lots and lots about from the students is a sense of campus life. That has been lacking, and that is something that is a big challenge. Your enrollment and scheduling management for effectiveness and efficiency and productivity. This is how to get the best out of your program so that your students have the best access and the best ability to get to where they want to go without having to spend a lot of time unnecessarily doing it. And then there's always leadership transitions that go on in a college, and that's a challenge as well. And as was mentioned in a different way earlier, you have geographic isolation. You are not right in the middle of town. And it is a challenge in terms of access for students if they don't have easy transportation. And you live in an area with high housing costs. So that's the challenges. And that then can be turned into opportunities. You know, they always say that a challenge can be an opportunity. And there are, in fact, a lot of potential opportunities which should be considered as we develop the goals for the future of the college. You can expand dual enrollment if you do it well. There is a question and ability for increasing non-credit training and work-based learning, engaging more local adults that don't have an associate degree. As was mentioned, there's almost 50% of your residents don't have an associate degree. Enrollment efficiency enables you to offer more and creating nimble programs that address emerging fields. Big opportunity there. Developing more 2+2 programs is a real option. You have stackable credentials, but you could increase that. You could integrate your sustainability into programs that align with growing industries. The guided pathways or areas of study need to be fully developed. And again, accessibility and appeal on campus. The ability to, this is one I think is a no-brainer, increasing financial aid participation. It's a question of, do your students really know of the opportunities that exist for them? Improving your math and English completion rates, first year completion rates, again, that's a funding issue as well as a student success issue. Increasing degree completion rates and boosting your transfer rates are all opportunities. More short-term skill-based CTE programs, capitalizing on employment growth in emerging industries, all opportunities for programmatic change. And then we get into marketing and strengthening recruitment, working on retention and engagement, using your scheduling tools. There's a lot of technological tools that are available now that once weren't to help you do good scheduling, more standardization for operational efficiency, and expanding professional development for all employee groups on the campus. Because if you don't know what you don't know, if you don't know how to do something, you're not going to be successful. And it is important for all groups to continue to want to work here, continue to feel like they matter, and to be have access to new ideas and professional development. So I have whizzed through those. They are all going to be on the website, and there are going to be more. We asked the task force this morning to put down what they saw as their important challenges and opportunities. And so they're not on this slide because it was developed prior to that meeting. But there's a lot to think about, and it's important that everybody at the college know about it. So I'm glad to see faces other than the task force here at the forum. And now we want to give you the opportunity to make comments, ask questions. We've got the roving reporter over there. Cindy has the mic. So.
Thank you, Donna. All right, so we covered a lot of ground in 40 minutes, a lot, and it's a lot to take in, and these are just the highlights. So you can imagine how much information the task force has really been working with, a lot of information. These blue cards, we'd like you to fill these out. At the top, you just check that you're at the 320 session. Just put a check in 320 so we can keep track of how many people were in each session. And then check what your category is, if you're faculty, manager, classified staff, or student. And then right below, whatever reflections or comments you have, you can write a question in there if you want, but we're interested in your feedback, comments about, what was an aha to you? Was there something that was, that jumped off the screen at you that you think is really important, or that kind of thing. So whatever you want to write, you can use the back of the card too, and then we'll collect these at the end of the session. So this is our last slide, and we wanted to save the last 15 minutes for Q&A. So this slide just tells you what's happening from here forward. The task force members in the room know this, but for those of you who aren't, just so you know, March 31st, that week, will be the week that we'll have the draft EMP ready to be reviewed, except for the goals and objectives, because they won't be done yet. But during that week of, we're not sure what day exactly, but March 31st week. So that's about 2 weeks away. We're populating sections now. Then April 29th and 30th, the goal-setting session with the task force and the executive team. And then the next forum is April 30th from 3 to 4, and that forum will be focused, we won't be covering what we covered today, we'll be covering the goals and objectives that were developed. So that's what that forum session is about. And then April, all of April and May really is campus review and feedback, so anything that people have that they'd like to say. So with that, on your blue card at the bottom is the website. If you're looking for where is the website, it's at the bottom of that blue card if you want to jot that down. But it's on Cuesta College's Educational Master Plan website, but if you just want to write it down for a link, you certainly can do that. And then, like I say, because we're going to collect these cards, so if you want to do that, you can. We have two people, Cindy's on this side and Megan is on this side with microphones, and they will come to you if you just raise your hand. And if you have a question, a comment, a thought you wanted to share, let's take these next 15 minutes and let's prioritize in particular the people who are not on the task force, since they haven't had a chance to really ask questions. So let's start with, if you are not on the task force, just raise your hand if you have a question, a comment, a thought, whatever you'd like to share. Okay, right there, Cindy. Just if you can give us your name and what you do and what your thought is.
Yeah, so my name is Paige, and I'm on the Cuesta HR team. And my question was, I saw on the slides that it said that Cuesta's efficiency is low. I'm just curious as to how that metric is measured and what that really means for the school.
Sure, yeah. When you say your efficiency is low, that is your student to faculty ratio in the classroom of what it costs to run a class, basically. So you want to be between 15 and 16, or above 15 and a half is the number that you want. And Cuesta's is at 11, so it's very low compared to other colleges. And it has been consistently running low. So what that means is your cost of running your classes and your programs for students is more expensive, which means that you don't have as much fluid money to hire more staff or hire full-time faculty or buy equipment or all the other things that you'd like to spend your money on. When your efficiency is low, then that's not, helpful to that. So the goal is to try to get the right balance of offering the array of courses and programs that the students need, but doing it in a way that's as efficient as you can be. So you don't want to run classes that have 10 students in them, for example, unless it's something like a specific lab where they're limited to that many students by some kind of regulation or something like that. So that's what that number means.
Gotcha, that makes sense, thank you.
Right. It's also, and other colleges, some colleges use the weekly student contact hour configuration, which is 525. You want to hit 525. That's what you're funded on. You're funded on 15 or 525. Those are the numbers. And so that's what you're funded on. So if you're funded on that level and you're below that level, you're not reaching your funding level.
Thank you.
Bet. Who else has a question or a comment? Yes.
Hi, my name is Christina Vasti, and I'm the Associate Director for Dual Enrollment here at Cuesta College. So thank you for all the work that you did to compile the challenges and opportunities with the constituent groups. I was wondering, I know there was a big push at the beginning to gather feedback, right, from external folks, both in industry and education in our county. Do we see in this process moving forward, is there follow-up with those folks to kind of summarize, right, what your group is saying around the challenges and opportunities? It was a follow-up or re-engagement with the folks that you originally...
Right.
Yeah.
The short answer to that is that as the task force works on the goals and objectives, there would be follow-up of whatever they come up with in the goals and objectives. That's the focus of what the next 4 years are going to focus on. But yeah, anything that comes up. Sometimes we get in a session, we'll get a one-off comment from someone. If it's just one person has a concern about something, we'll forward that on to the person at the college that maybe would address that one question, something like that. But the general comments of the themes that come out of different things, like in your areas, as a good example, dual enrollment. If you look thematically at dual enrollment, you have a growing program. Your dual enrollment has actually been the area of growth of the college. The regular programming in the college has stayed pretty flat. Dual enrollment has grown. It's now about a fourth of your enrollment here at this college. So the good news is that, and that's similar to other colleges have a lot of dual enrollment as well. So the good news about that is that you've filled the gap that would have been a declining enrollment with dual enrollment. The other good piece of news is that, the students in the high schools are getting classes and they're getting transcripted credit and they're getting all of that. That's really good news. The bad news is a fourth of your enrollment is in dual enrollment. So if anything changes with regulations, A fourth of your enrollment is in that one sector, which is a lot. It's a lot to have in that sector. So the feedback that we received about dual enrollment, the schools really like it, the students, the parents, you know, they really like having dual enrollment. They want more and more and more of it. And more schools would like to participate and have more agreements and things, as you know. One of the challenges is managing the program. That came up a lot, of how do we manage the program well in Cuesta College, because it is growing to be such a large piece of what we do. So those are the things that would be followed up to answer your question. That's what the follow-up would be. Either it would be part of one of the objectives under one of the goals to work on dual enrollment. I would assume it probably will come out somewhere in there. At a minimum, it would be addressed by yourself and the others who work on the dual enrollment program. So that kind of thing, that information, all that information is available for you to work with.
Absolutely, sounds good. And then I'm guessing all of this information can also just go back summarized to, like, I was just kind of thinking about the folks we engaged with, right, from
Yes.
the K-12s and government sectors to say, like, we took your feedback, right, and here's what our plan is moving forward. So
Right. That would be a good strategy for you to do. I'm assuming dual enrollment will probably appear because it's such a big thing, it'll probably appear in the goals and objectives. So whoever is in charge of that particular area of the Ed Master Plan, that you lay out your plan of work of what you're going to do. In the implementation plan, I would assume one would be to go back and talk to people and say, we heard you, here's what we're planning to do, we're going to add this, or we're going to change that, or do something else, whatever it would be.
sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. And she does raise a good point that, you know, the Educational Master Plan is the overarching plan of what needs to be done for the 4 years, but then you have an action plan each year that says, okay, so what are we doing this year? Which pieces are we tackling, and who's doing what by when? Which person or committee or group or whatever is going to work on this piece, and what are they going to do? And what's the timeline, and what are the outcomes we're looking for, and the milestones and all that? That's the next step after the plan is done. Other questions, comments? We'll open it up to including task force members. Do you have other questions, comments? Yes, over here. Thanks, Megan.
I was reflecting on our time in the task force as well as this hour, and I didn't see representation or comments or any feedback from athletics. And I was wondering if there was any mention of development or if that would even be appropriate within a master plan, given that it's, lack of a better term, an extracurricular associated with the district.
Do you have any feedback, Donna or Casey, or any feedback specifically on athletics that came in that you are aware of? Okay. Not in the student forums and not in the external ones, and in the internal ones would have been just in the field of study if they were attending that
Right.
field of study.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Did you have a question back there or a comment? Or just scratching your head, or? Okay. Other questions, comments? Yeah, it is. It's. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, for the recording. There is more information on the website. There's more, and the website is www.cuesta.edu/about/college plans/educational-master-plan.html. And the question was, you know, is there more detailed information? And yes, on the website, there is more detailed information. This is a condensed presentation, so there's more detailed information about dual enrollment, feedback from the community, for example, and other information. Lots of data, lots of information on there to look at. Other questions? Everybody's there's a lot to think about. All right. Well, we are just about out of time. We're about 2 minutes early. I'm going to turn it over to Vice President Hampton. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
Thank you all again so much for being here, for engaging in this work. We really appreciate it. Come to the next forum as well. Please fill out your cards. Again, thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, and we'll just collect your cards. You can just leave them on the tables. We'll collect them. It's fine. And if you want to take a blank one with the website on it, you're welcome to do that as well. All right, thank you very much for coming. Have a nice rest of your day and week and the rest of the semester.